You're listening to Radigan's Rockcast, a series focused on talking about music from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and even current. Now, here's your host, Tom Radigan.
What's going on, guys? It's Tom Radigan from Radigan's Rockcast. Of course, I am your host, always, as in always. Preaching to the music fans out there. Thank you, whether you're listening to this on WNYO, Amazon, Anchor, Castos, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you are on. I am glad you are on. I still have to think about that when I'm giving that intro, even though I've given it so many times at this point. Alright, so we're still into the Maroon 5 album series. We went over Songs About Jane. We went over It Won't Be Soon Before Long. We went over Hands All Over. And then we just went over Overexposed. Now we're going over their fifth album, which is, simply titled, V, or as in 5, it's, V, of course, for the Roman numeral number and all that. The thing that's interesting about this album is that, like Overexposed, we're seeing a shift with Maroon 5, and we're seeing it head in a little bit more of what was going on in the 2010s. Maroon 5 is following what other artists are doing, with overproduction of music, relying on enhanced Autotune in a sense with Adam Levine's voice. It's no longer natural, and that's starting to become a problem too. That's where it starts to lack, for me, I think. And I start to feel like what musicians do with Autotune is I sort of see it like this. How an athlete, when they do steroids, they're enhancing their speed and all that stuff. That's kind of how I feel what musicians do with Autotune. They use it as it's their steroids, They feel they need to enhance it to make them sound better, because some musicians are self-conscious about, their voice. And of course there are some musicians that can't sing at all and need Autotune heavily and all that. But I think the thing about this album is that I had to listen to it many times. At first, when I listened to it, I knew, of course, the 3 singles, and Sugar actually is on this album, and Sugar is another one of my favorite Maroon 5 songs. It's really something that's been able to just keep. I liked it when it first came out, and I just, never really stopped not liking it. I just thought, I've always liked it. I always thought it was a pretty good song. But when I listened to the rest of this album, I just, I hated it, honestly, or just I couldn't stand it, I had to listen to it a few times to really kind of understand it, and of course somewhat of my mind changed with it. I knew the other 2 singles, which was Maps and Animals. I remember when that came about, and I remember because around this time, because this album came out in 2014, and I remember I already was started becoming a Maroon 5 fan in 2012, but in 2014 I kind of went back and looked at and really was listening to their early stuff again, and that was when I discovered their music videos and really just going back into that. And then I found out in the summer they released an album. This was going into from my freshman year to my sophomore year in that summer. And I kind of lost interest. I never was really one for when new stuff came out, even from people I liked. And it took me a while to listen to it. And when I heard it on the radio every now and then, I was like, it is what it is. I wasn't fully on board with it. Especially with Maps and Animals. They just didn't sound as interesting. They just didn't sound like something that, in some ways I feel there are some Maroon 5 songs that we're gonna get to that don't sound like them at all, just are completely off. These still in some ways stick to what they were doing, just of course elevating what they're doing as time goes on, and step in their game. But I don't really, I'm not really hooked with these songs. These songs don't have the interesting hooks for me, they have them in a sense, but they're not interesting, or they just don't work for me, So that's Maps and Animals. I'm just gonna map them out as, no pun intended, as to to talking about focusing on two of the songs. And then you know, I had to go back and look at and listen to the singles into the other songs on the album that's not the singles. Like It Was Always You and Unkiss Me. You know, like I said on Overexposed, there were a few songs that, you know, that would come after the other that would sound similar. Somewhat there's that sort of issue with this album too, but you know, a little bit of what I like about those songs is that they have, each song on this album might not be one of my favorites or something I would listen to, but there's something on each of these, on most of these songs that are catchy in a sense, you know, and all that really like are like, oh wow, like I like this part, you know, and that's like on Kiss Me, It Was Always You, you know, and all that. So there's that there. And oh yeah, like the one thing to mention too is, of course, Maroon 5 at this point is now 6 members and all that. PJ Morton is an official member, and Jesse Carmichael is back on this album. And of course, you know, Mickey Madden, Matt Flynn, James Valentine, and of course Adam Levine, you know, as always. And then, you know, so It Was Always You and Unkiss Me. I would say those are good songs, and I would definitely, you know, they were definitely something that, you know, helps with the positivity with my positive feelings of this album. And then going into, but at first, you know, I had to listen to them again to really have them grow on me and all that, you know. And then, you know, of course, the 5th song is Sugar, which I already loved that song already, and already saw it as probably the highlight of the album, and it still is, you know, and all that, you know, and it works pretty well. Just, you know, I think everything about, like, out of all the songs, like I said, there's something catchy about in each song. The reason why Sugar stands out is because everything in that song really stands out and is catchy, you know, and it works, you know, and the band is in sync, you know, and there might be, you know, some overproduction, like I said, like, you know, how I feel like the album is overproduced in some ways, and any song on this album could be like that. I don't really notice it as much, you know, when it comes to this song, so, you know, but it works pretty well, you know, just sounds like, you know, the 6 guys, or I think even 7, because Sam Farrar, who you know, will be on their next album as their 7th member, I think was already performing with them, especially because when you see the music video, he's, I think, with them too, because the music video is them performing at weddings and all that. Yeah, no, I like that. And then at 6 we have Leaving California, which is, you know, a little, you know, it's not one of the best ballads. It's a little boring for my taste and all that. You know, and you know, I mean, it's not, it ain't no Good Night from their second album. But you know, they were trying, I think they tried to have this, I guess, as the main ballad, you know, and all the stuff, you know. I mean, it's somewhat got a memorable hook with, you know, the lines of Leaving California, the way Adam Levine emphasizes those words. You know, then we have, of course, In Your Pocket and New Love. You know, kind of, you know, not songs that are a little, not that memorable and all that, I feel. Then we have, you know, Come Back for You, New Love. You know, Feelings, you know, with some of these songs, because Adam Levine, you know, there's really no album that doesn't go by where Adam Levine doesn't curse in a song. But you know how I said in, like, Songs About Jane, and even It Won't Be Soon Before Long, that his cursing was sort of natural in those songs. Now it just seems like it's forced. It just seems like the curse for the hell of it, you know? Even in Sugar, a song that I really like, you know? I just feel like at this point it's like, it's a little too much, you know, and all that, you know? Yeah, no, so, I mean, we have, Feelings, which was another single on this. You know, not a memorable single in my opinion, but, you know, okay. And then My Heart Is Open with Gwen Stefani. You know, alright, I'm not a huge Gwen Stefani fan, but you know, it's alright. It's not great, but it's alright, you know. And then we got This Summer, which is This Summer's Gonna Hurt Like a Motherfucker. And that's catchy, especially with the hook of this summer. Yeah. You know where I'm going with this. Yeah, and I think it's a good one, and, you know, probably a good tune for that summer. I think I do remember hearing that song playing in the summer. It sounds like a song that would be in some beach movies and all that. Dirty beach movies. I don't know. It sounds like a movie that would be in Dirty Grandpa, even though I never really seen Dirty Grandpa all the way through. Yeah. And then there's Shoot Love and Sex Candy, which is interesting. Definitely. I love those songs. And the thing that's interesting about those songs, and also Lost Stars, which are the other songs, they're bonus tracks on the album. They were extended in the deluxe version and all that. And honestly, those songs stand out more than the other album tracks on this. But I decided to include them in it, and all that. Lost Stars was actually in a movie called Begin Again that Adam Levine was in. And it's a movie that my mom and I love. And we were apparently watching it. My mom was watching it the other day. And it was funny because I had this idea of reviewing Maroon 5 albums and all that. And then when I listened to this, and all that stuff to get ready and prepare, remember I was like, where have I heard Lost Stars before? And I looked it up and I found out it was on Begin Again. So that's a song that I love, and I think it works pretty well too. I think it's, and what's good about this is it doesn't sound overproduced. Like most of the album, a lot of these songs are overproduced in all that sense. But this song, it doesn't really have that, and I think it sort of works. So to give my final thoughts, V is an album that is, I think, a hit or miss. I think that there are some songs that there are people I know who love Animals and Maps, and there are some people I know who love this album, who thinks there's a lot of good songs, and there are some songs that definitely represent the music style of the early 2010s and of what was the sound of 2014. Some songs blend well with Sugar and the other three singles, but for my ranking, I will give this a Randy Jackson.
Wasn't great, but okay, dog.
So that's my take on this album. What's your take and all that? And we now are going to go into the next Maroon 5 album. Is that going to be a great album? You'll find out.